Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you all came out to listen to what we have to present to you today, because it's really important information. I'm Kathy Goldsmith. I'm standing here on behalf of the Ad Hoc Wildfire Mitigation Committee. And your board of directors, about a year or so ago, knew that there were two items that really needed to be addressed in depth for our residents. One was insurance, and if you were here earlier this month, you saw a town hall that we presented on insurance. That has affected everybody in our community. But this is our second town hall, and it has to do with becoming a fire-wise community. Two-pronged ad hoc committee, insurance and wildfire. So let me introduce them. Our chair, Dr. Annie Powell, she's standing there in the back. And Patty Pitts, she's sitting down there in the back. And Captain Doug Dupree, he's there. You'll see him with the microphone later on. Bob Furrier, who doesn't happen to be right here right now. And back doing a special videography of this event is John Goolsby. And we thank him so very much for doing that for us. We also have some important guests here today, and I'm very happy to announce them. Although I don't see the mayor yet. Is the mayor? Oh, well then, would you like to have some things to say for the city of Beaumont? Okay, I'll go. He's the acting city manager, Gus Romo. We also have Cal Fire Division Chief and Beaumont Fire Chief Todd Hopkins, Riverside County Assistant Fire Marshal Kylie Tilema, and she's running a little bit late, but you'll see her, you'll recognize her when she gets here. And Riverside County Battalion Chief Ryan Lubben. Now, I'd like to ask our board president, Jerry Monahan, to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all please stand.
Ready?
Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States, America. Thank you very much.
I just want to say a couple of things that I think we should take into consideration as we start this program. Recently, John sent me an email this morning that showed me a newspaper article from the city of Riverside. The city of Riverside has decided that they will be inspecting homes for fire safety if you're in the fire zone. That means they'll be sending letters to people's homes and inspecting the homes. Now, they follow the cities of Menifee, Palm Springs, Temecula, Palm Desert, and Redlands as moving forward with this very serious issue and taking it in a very serious way. These laws, many of them have been on the books for a long time, but they've never been enforced. Some of them have never been codified. The city of Beaumont has yet to codify the regulations. They have codified them for new construction, but not for existing construction. So with that, I know you're all going to be interested in this because I certainly am. I'm turning it over to Chief Todd Hopkins.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yes, it's true that Riverside City is doing home inspections now. However, that's not anything new. That's something that we currently do throughout the county right now. And that is just the regular defensible space inspections that we've always carried on. A lot of that's done through the city with our code enforcement. They go out, and that's where you'll see Actually, we've done stuff just outside the gates where that 21-acre parcel is, and why they've had to clean that. That's part of those defensible space inspections. So that's a little bit different than what has been the new fire hazard severity zone maps that have come out and the new defensible space that's come out. So it's a step towards the defensible space is what Riverside City is doing, but all they are doing is regular defensible space. They're not going in right now and enacting the zone 0, the zone 1, the zone 2. So what I'll talk about real quick, and then we can get into the fire-wise, and Chief Lubben will be able to even elaborate more, is if you're not familiar, CAL FIRE presented or created some new, what we call fire hazard severity zone maps. And what this is they list these maps. Is anybody not familiar with the maps? We're not seeing them in here? So I don't have to explain everything about them? Okay, so you all know about them. Probably because you're losing your insurance or something, right? Because of the maps. Okay, so what these maps, there's a picture of the map. The red, the yellow, the orange, and then the gray area, right? So you have very high fire severity zones, you have high fire severity zones, you have moderate fire severity zones. The way these maps are generated is it's a probability of a fire occurring in those areas. So what they do, and this is one of the things I used to do, well, a little bit about me. I'm your fire chief for the city of Beaumont, the city of Banning. I'm also the division chief for the San Antonio Pass. I oversee the Oak Glen Conservation Camp, the inmate fire camp. And then I'm also one of the incident commanders for one of CAL FIRE's 6 incident management teams that travels the state and manages all the large incidents. So I was one of the incident commanders for the Palisades Fire. I was one of the incident commanders for the airport fire in Orange County, the mountain fire in Ventura County, and then from border to border. So I go all over the state managing any type of incidents, whether it's fires, floods, COVID. We did Newcastle disease when we had to kill chickens way back years ago. So that's what our management teams do, is we go in and manage incidents. So one of the things I did before I became an incident commander is, besides running fire operations for one of the teams or plans, is I was something called the fire behavior analyst. And what a fire behavior analyst does is we take computer modeling and we take weather inputs and we go in and we basically put dot fires all over the landscape of where the areas that we're in, and then we run fire models with different climatology from that area. And essentially what it does is we'll get certain predictions on probabilities of a fire starting in a certain, what we call a pixel. So what you have is you have a landscape, so it's your map, and on your map, it's broken down to what's pixels, so little dots all over the map. Well, every single time that you run these different fire models, and we'll run hundreds or even thousands of different fire models with different, same type of fuels, because the fuels don't really change. The topography, the lay of the ground doesn't change, but your weather changes. So we'll run them at different times of the year. We'll run them with different types of wind. And what they do is they gather all that information from all the weather stations that are around and all the historical weather data, and then they run these models. So they'll run thousands of fires by dropping little fires all over the landscape, let them run. Well, every single time one of these pixels lights up and catches fire, they count it, right? So they come up with, and I don't know on these fire severity zone maps what the probability is of red, if it meant that 70% to 100% of the time that it started a fire, or if it's 80% to 100%, that's the numbers that I don't know. But the way they come up with this is there's some kind of number, some kind of range that when they ran these fire models, as many times as it hit, if it hit that, they made that red. And then if it was a little bit less, they made that yellow. If it was a little bit less, they made it orange, and so on. So they run all these, and it's a probability map. And where they took account into these maps versus the old maps and why they changed is they added what's called an Embercast model. And what the Embercast model is what we call spot fires. So a spot fire is you have your main part of your fire, and then basically an ember gets cast out ahead of that fire, and then it starts another fire independent of what your main fire is. Well, that's, especially around here, right? Wind-driven fires, we get the Santa Ana winds. That's the type, so that's where some of these maps changed to where in the past they didn't use the ember cast model, and now they're using the ember cast model. So they ran thousands of fires, and then these are the maps that they came up with. Well, what happens now is you get your insurance companies that look at these maps, right? And they say, well, you're in red, the very high fire, so now we don't want to insure you, or you're gonna have to switch to a fire safe plan, or the California Fair Plan, or your insurance rates are gonna go up, or they're gonna ask you to do these different things to your home, like home hardening. Well, part of this also is where the studies with these maps came out, is they came up with defensible space zones. And what they did is they looked at fires throughout the state, fires that were up in Napa, fires that were down south, so fires in all the different areas where they had a lot of destruction and home loss. And they came up with this new defensible space of what they call Zone 0, Zone 1, Zone 2. And Zone 0, if you haven't heard what that is, that means from 0 to 5 feet from your property, you can't have any type of vegetation or combustible materials that are around your house. So how many of you have some type of shrubbery or bushes that are up against your house, right? I do. Well, with Zone 0 to 5, Zone 0, you can't have any of that stuff up there. The only type of plants that you can really have up around your house are gonna be a potted plant that can be removed by the firefighter so that you don't have that combustible material. It also gets rid of other materials, looking at vinyl fences or the type of building constructions that are being used. And what they're looking at is all the homes that were destroyed throughout the state, of what were some of the commonalities of what was catching these houses on fire. Because the fire department will come in, we'll save houses, and then when we leave, the houses will burn back, they'll rekindle. Well, it's having certain types of materials, so like bark, having bark around in your planters. Well, those fire embers will get down in those barks, they'll start cooking down there and they'll sit down there. We'll come in and everything looks good, the house isn't burning, we'll leave, and then later on that bark will start burning and then catch the house on fire. So that's where they came up with these different zones. And then your zone, defensible space zone 1 is from 5 feet to 30 feet. You have to have trees trimmed back so much, certain types of vegetation, there's certain clearances you have to have, and then you have zone 2 is 30 feet and beyond. So that's where they came. Now, the thing right now is none of you need to go out and rip your bushes out of your house or tear down your vinyl fences or anything right now. If you're already a pre-existing construction, then right now they're saying it's 2 to 3 years before they're gonna start trying to enforce this. If you have new construction, however, if they're building something new, then that's where Kylie's stepping in, or other people, if it's our state fire marshals, and they have to be up to that code now, the Zone 0, Zone 1, and Zone 2 for their new construction. A little bit different than what, I'm not 100% sure what Riverside City, if they're applying, they can't apply those zones right now, but I don't believe they are. I think they're just highlighting that they're doing defensible space inspections, which, like I said, that's something that our engine companies go out and do currently. Plus we have code enforcement goes out and does that type of stuff also, so that's nothing new. I guess I'm not gonna ask questions right now, we'll do questions at the end so we can get in the Firewise, but that's why we're here, is because of these fire hazard severity zone maps. Who has gotten rejected from their insurance or gotten a letter saying that you need to either be part of a Firewise program or what we call FARCL. I always forget what it stands for. I'll let them say what it is, but we call it FARCL is the abbreviation. But there's many insurance companies that are saying, hey, you need to show proof that you're part of one of these programs. So who's gotten canceled or who's lost their insurance or had to switch to California Fair Plan? So just one? Okay, so a number of people, right? So pretty much if you're in that red zone, I mean, I'd be ready for your insurance changing. You had that talk with the insurance stuff back in the day. Regardless of what maps we have, please know that the insurance companies have their own proprietary maps and they're private entities, so they can do what they want and manage their companies the way they want, regardless if we change our maps back or, they change in the future. What we're doing here now is trying to get you guys into what we call a FireWise community. And I can tell you, and Ryan will elaborate more, but what this does is it's to strengthen and harden your community to be resistant to the threat of wildland fires. One of the benefits of it is if you're part of the California Fair Plan, I believe it's still a 10% reduction that they'll give you on your insurance by showing that you're part of this program. Ryan's going to talk to you today about there's certain contributions that you have to do, and it is a monetary value, but it's nothing out of your pocket. It's all has to do with like investing in your house, like cleaning up your, cutting your grass. That counts towards money towards the program. So a lot of it's documentation that you have to do. It's a community meeting that you have to do, or some type of community event, which could just be a flyer or something like this, a talk once a year, and those all qualify towards this program. And Ryan's our expert in the county. He's going around the different communities and trying to get our communities signed up in this, and he's gonna be your go-to person to help get you all signed up. And what that'll look like is, I think they nominated Eric, if Eric's still gonna be the point of contact, but Eric will be the point of contact. You guys will filter all your stuff to Eric. Eric will get it in, and Chief Lubben is gonna walk them through the process of getting you guys signed up for FireWise. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Ryan now and let him speak about FireWise. And then if Kylie has a different, I think, type of program that the county offers, if she wants to speak on that real quick too, we'll let her talk. And then after that, we'll take any questions that you have, okay? So thank you all for coming, we appreciate it.
Afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing? Thanks for coming. I'll try to talk as loud as I can. I'm still a little stuffy myself from this cold. So my name's Ryan Lubben, Battalion Chief here at CAL FIRE, Riverside County Fire. I used to be the Battalion Chief down for the Temecula area, and then recently took a transfer into our state relief position and now take over our community risk reduction and community wildfire preparedness and mitigation. It's a mouthful, I know. So it encompasses almost anything and everything you could think of, and more stuff that the bosses find for me to take over and deals with community risk reduction or wildfire preparedness and mitigation. So I do quite a bit of stuff. So how many of you guys here by the show of hands have heard of FireWise or know anything about it? That's pretty good, pretty good. So FireWise program goals is education. It's heavily on education. It's individual responsibility. There's nothing crazy that you guys have to do with this, and it's just neighbor to neighbors. It's being good neighbors is really what it's about, being good community neighbors. So we'll discuss about your local engagement, the program itself, and how to become a recognized site. It's not a certification, it's a recognition. So that's very important that you guys know that, right? And the insurance companies know that as well. It's a recognition, okay? So in Riverside County currently, right now, these are our stats. I think they may have changed a little bit. We have 8 sites in good standing. We have 22 sites, and they call it sites, so it's communities that are still pending for approval to be in good standing, what they consider in good standing with NFPA. With that, if I remember correctly, nationwide, there's 3,000 FireWise communities. 1,500 of those are here in California. So if that tells you how much CAL FIRE, we are pushing these communities, it says a lot right there. Over half of them are here in the state of California. So it's a volunteer-based community program. It's put on through CAL FIRE. Anybody could do it, but they've partnered with us to really push this program and for the communities and to get people cognizant of being resilient in the wildfire communities. Our state liaison at the highest level is Deputy Chief Shane Vargas there. So he's way up in Sacramento. We have a couple state area representatives. Sean Arnold, who used to be a battalion or a captain here in the Riverside Unit, one of my partner BCs. He's who I constantly talk to in our southern region area. So out by March Air Force Base, we have a southern region headquarters where all the bigwigs work. And he's out of there, and that's where they run. And then I'm the regional coordinator for the entire county. And then that gets broken down to, let's say, the city of Corona starts doing these. They might assign a regional coordinator too, but then they can all tie back into me, and we'll start to go up that chain. And then below me would be your resident leader, which I hear, Eric, you're the lucky one that's nominated, right? Wherever he is. So the benefits of being Firewise. It's educating you as residents, right, of all the wildfire community risks within the area, improves awareness of your wildfire risks, and it's really emphasized on public education, right? A little bit of work for you guys to do, but it's mainly the education piece. Works towards reducing your wildfire risks by creating more wildfire prepared communities throughout the area and reducing. So it's just cleaning up your properties, cleaning up the area, and making sure that area is resilient for wildfires. So if something happens, like Chief was saying, a fire does come through here, everything's cleaned up, everything's picked up, you've hardened your home, you've done your defensible space, and now the fire's here. We get an ember cast, which is up to like 300 feet is what we look out to. So we shouldn't have to worry about that stuff if everybody follows through with all the things they do. It really heightens your chance of survivability, your home survivability chance when you start to put all these mitigation measures together. There's potential funding through a 503c for Firewise communities. So with that, you could kind of make it a 503c, but it really doesn't work. What works really well is partnering with a fire safe council. Fire safe councils are kind of like an overview, and it's kind of the same thing. They create, and you guys, the city can create one, you guys can create one, and you make a board, and then you become a 503c, and you can go out for grants. And where it works well with the Firewise communities is the communities can go to those fire safe councils and say, hey, we want to do a chipping program, or we want to remove some trees, or this or that. We want to harden some structures. Is there grants? And you can get grants from them to help fund these projects for your community to make that community resilient. Okay? The reduction in insurance premiums, that's always the big one for everybody. I'm sure I saw all your guys' hands on the FAIR plan. I'm trying to stay out of your guys' way so you can see. I myself am on the FAIR plan. We know that they offer a 10% discount. We haven't got any confirmation on that. So if you guys do it and you guys get one, I would really like confirmation so I can solidly tell people that happens. With that, with the FAIR plan, there's also other things that I just learned, supposedly they stack the discounts on. So if you're a Firewise community member, you supposedly get a discount. If you're a Fire Safe Council member, you get a discount. If you're in a FERCL, which he talked about, which is the Fire Risk Reduction Community List, supposedly they add that one on as well. So there's a lot of stuff that allegedly comes through with doing these mitigation measures. So the benefits of this, so your insurance, it demonstrates to the insurance carriers that you are being Firewise, that you're trying to reduce the risk of your home being destroyed or damaged by a wildland fire, okay? And one of the measures in which they utilize, the insurance companies utilize, is the IIBHS, which is the International Institute for Business and Home Safety. And basically all it is it's the insurance company's research company for natural disasters. So they have a big building in, I believe it's Missouri somewhere, and they build little structures and all kinds of things, and they throw hurricanes at it, they throw fires at it, they do all this stuff, and they know exactly what's gonna happen by putting plants there, by ember casts, everything. And that's where they kind of get this information from. So they know when you take these measures, what the reduction risk is gonna be for your property. So the first thing to do, my understanding is you guys have an HOA, which is great. We highly recommend HOAs doing this. I know as soon as I walked in, some of the first questions were, how are we going to sign everybody up? The good thing is not all of you have to sign up. Your neighbor could not even want to be a part of this and not even join, could care less. But as you do it as a community, they get roped into it and involved in it. So they benefit from you wanting to do it. So what we're looking for is roughly 8 to 2,500 structures, right? But what we found out, and there's roughly 2,000 homes here from my understanding in the community, what we found out is anything over 1,500 is a little unmanageable. So really, like, we would just want to split Four Seasons up here equally into 2 zones, essentially. And we would zone it 2 different zones for fire-wise, so everybody gets it, right? And all it is creating a map, as you can see on there. This would be, say, Four Seasons. We just create a map, establish your board, which is going to be your HOA, which is great because they can hold the meetings with all of you. They can discuss all the stuff. They're going to do a risk assessment on all the structures within the community, within the map area that they're looking for. And there's 11 observations looked at, right? And we just they evaluate for home hardening, home ignition zones. And no one has to be there. They could just look at your house as they're walking by, doing the inspection and marking it down. Not a big deal at all. Recommended assistance by the local fire department. So that's where really when you guys would move forward with this, it would be me. You'd reach out to me, have me come do it, even though I'm not your local fire chief. And the other Ryan Dutton, my partner's here. He's the local fire battalion chief, and then Chief Hopkins is the fire chief. But you would reach out to me, time with me, we would talk, we'd do this stuff. I'd put my name on your form, make sure you guys are doing everything you're supposed to. There's a 3-year plan that needs to be completed, and a 5-year plan that needs to be completed, which just talks about different things such as, we're going to do education on this year on these topics, cleaning the gutter, trimming your trees. We're potentially going to have a tree trimming and wood chipping program that we're going to hold annually, and we're going to, collect everybody's tree trimmings and dispose of them properly, whatever it may be, right? And it could be an education piece that you guys have in here where you talk about as simple as evacuations. Let's say a fire happened and that the chief needed to evacuate you guys from the community. What would be the community's evacuation plan? That's a great one, because then you would invite my partner in and the chief in, and you guys would talk about and discuss evacuation stuff. So you're hitting multiple birds with one stone there. So some of these observations you see, looking at the house, looking at the roof material, your soffit vents, your siding, any skirting, all those different things. Everybody, I know you can kind of be worried about your pre-existing home, whether or not you meet some of this criteria for the building materials. It's all based on a percentage amount. Sorry, man. It's all based on a percentage amount for you guys. So that's the good thing. We don't necessarily need anybody to go out and spend money right away or do anything to make their home qualify for this. It's just all self-assessment, and it gets weighted in, right? And you can see here on the form, 50 to 75% of the houses have metal, tile, or Class A or fiberglass shingles, or greater than 75% have asphalt or fiberglass shingles. So it's that sort of thing. It's not individual homes. They're just going to go out, and a lot of the stuff could be done from like Google Earth, right? Looking at people's roofs with stuff. The soffits, just about everybody's in tract homes. You've seen one, you've seen them all. The soffits are pretty much all going to be the same. So you kind of know. You just go around and you see what's what, and you check the little box there, and that's all you do. You also want to look at window attachments, roofs, gutter debris, gutter type. Does anybody have the vinyl gutters? All metal? Good. Vinyl gutters are not good. And then it breaks down the zones. Immediate zone, zone 0 to 5 feet. Intermediate zone, 5 to 30. Extended zone, 30 to 100. Which brings me into, Chief talked about it. Does anybody know how long we've had our defensible space program as CAL FIRE? It's over 60 years. So it came out in the 60s. So it's been around for over 60 years, had multiple names. And as you can see, as we progressed, we've just extended and improved and updated our information as far as what the different zones are. And then like zone 0, like Chief was talking about, I know the city, I believe, adopted Zone 0, but the Board of Forestry, who is the guiding law for all these zones and everything, has not adopted Zone 0 yet. So it doesn't technically exist. We know what the stuff is because they have not put it into law yet. They're still having discussions. Supposedly next month it's supposed to be out. I don't have high hopes. I think it's going to get pushed even further out. Because as you can imagine, like Chief said, everybody's got pretty plants next to their house, all kinds of things. So it's pretty upsetting when you got to remove everything from the side of your house. So assistance by your local fire department or state forestry agency. So that, like I said, that'd be me. Resident leader. So I'd be in contact with them for help. There's also nonprofits and other agencies that'll help do this. So one of the ones that is had lots of success with us just north of us is the Inland Empire Fire Safety Alliance. So they are a good resource to reach out to help you guys with, they collect grants, so grant funding for different things and whatnot, but they have had great success up on the mountaintop in the Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead area and throughout San Bernardino County. They're very engaged, very good non-government organization that provides the assistance for residents for this stuff. Use the findings from the observation to identify the actions needed, steps taken. That's all part of the plan that you got to put together. Local fire department factors, any fire history, local ordinance, and then the public resource code. So all this stuff refers back to Public Resource Code 4291, and then there's a couple others, but it all pays into the 4290 series of the Public Resource Code as far as what we're asking to be done. So the percentage of homes that is acceptable, not all homes need to be inspected, right? So it's just a percentage. So that's where I say, like, your neighbors that might not want to take part in this and do this with you guys, they're going to benefit because of what you guys want to do, and you're going to outnumber them. So your 3-year action plan, this kind of talks about that action plan we were discussing about. Multi-year hazard mitigation plan. So this is where I was talking about, like, maybe this year you want to do a waste removal program to get anybody that has piled waste around their house, right? And then the next year you want to do a tree trimming program and, get rid of all that hazardous vegetation that might be near people's homes. And then the next one might be, like I said, the evacuation stuff, whatever it is. There's plenty of examples online if you Google Firewise communities of different things that people put on these for their communities for the education piece. Ooh. Annual requirements. So record your risk reduction investments. Each house, and everybody gets kind of froggy when they hear about money. This money is make-believe. It's like Monopoly money, right? But your time is worth something, right? My time's worth something. Your guys' time is always worth something, right? So what they did is they said, your time is worth $33.49 an hour. Each home has to provide, that's going to be in this, $33.49 a year. That could be 1 hour of volunteer time on your house cleaning your yards. Do any of you guys still do your yard work on your own? Yep. Guess what? You just met the requirement. Who pays for a gardener? Guess what? Your gardener made your requirement for you. That could be counted towards that, right? Your neighbor that doesn't want to do anything, if they want you to clean their yard for them, you can volunteer your time and clean their yard for them and count that. That's how easy it is to do this. One educational event per year. Pretty simple. It looks like you guys enjoy hanging out here. I'm sure they could find ways to get you guys in here to talk about some wildfire mitigation plan, and then submitting the application. Here is the demo.
So from start to finish, we're going to start with our ember generators, which we use to recreate a realistic ember exposure. Embers are those small burning and smoldering particles that may travel ahead of the fire front. And what we do with our generators is we create the realistic exposure, and in our wind tunnel, we're able to throw them at a building. And then we have a building that has two sides to it, a good side, which uses wildfire resistant construction, and what we're considering a typical building that we would see in a wildfire prone area. Exactly as we expected, that mulch on the ground there caught fire from the embers. The fire from the mulch burned up under this deck, and this whole deck was on fire. And so this fire on this deck caused flames right against the home. And then if we look there at the base of the door, it was actually the flames from this deck that burned through the bottom of the door, and on the inside of the house we started to see smoke and flames. And so because this deck was a combustible material attached to the building, when the embers led to the ignition of this deck, we got flames inside of the building. Here we are on the wildfire resistant side of the house, where we had non-combustible siding, a 5-foot non-combustible zone and 6-inch gap. We had a metal gutter and multi-pane windows, and we see in comparison to the non-wildfire resistant side, this side had the same ember exposure. If you look here in the mulch, you can actually see some of the embers that had accumulated, but because they had no susceptible fuel to ignite, they just landed there and fizzled out. And here we have ornamental vegetation that again is susceptible to the embers, but because it's more than 5 feet away from the home, it didn't have enough energy to ignite, and it never led to a flame impact on the building.
So one of the interesting things when we're seeing these pictures, one of the fires I happened to be on a number of years ago was up in Napa, when all the wine country was burning, everything. We're going through neighborhoods, and just neighborhood after neighborhood, just like what you saw in Palisades, and fires completely destroyed, right? Except you'd be driving through, and then all at once you'd see a house standing. It's not burned. And you go down, house burn, 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 and then there'd be another one that was not burned. Well, if you remember back around when the Napa fires happened, that's when we started really pushing about the drought-tolerant plants and changing your landscaping, ripping out your grass, and changing a hardscape or something. Well, most of see, I'm going to move that. Oh, is that better? Yeah. Okay. Do I need to start over, or did you guys get the gist of it so far? Napa fires. A number of years ago, multiple houses, communities burnt to the ground, but then you'd have houses that were standing in these burnt out communities, just like what you saw in Eaton and Palisades. That's back when we were pushing the drought tolerant type plants and rip out your grass and put bark down and all this other items because California was in a big drought. Well, one of the things that I noticed when I was driving through all these, because I was doing fire behavior back then, was the houses that were standing were the houses that kept their grass front yards. The ones that were burnt up were the ones that had gone to drought tolerant, but they were using like either a mulch or wood chips around their houses. And again, that was wind-driven fire, ember casts getting thrown everywhere, and these embers just sit down in all those little voids of those things, of the wood bark or the mulch. And when the wind comes blowing in there, it's almost like the wind's concentrating, like if you're blowing through something and you're stoking that fire. And that's what was happening as the fire engines would go and try to save houses. They would think they knocked everything down, and they would leave doing what we call bump and run to the next houses. Well, it would rekindle in those wood chips. And now you have a whole entire area of wood chips would catch fire, burn up underneath the eaves that were not closed, and then get into the attic of the house. And pretty much when you're on a wildland fire, if the fire gets into the attic, the house pretty much becomes a total loss most of the time. Just because we don't have the resources to sit and connect to fire hydrants and then put on all the gear that we have to put on to go and fight a structure fire, because now you're fighting a structure fire. So that's what some of the stuff, and like the picture you're seeing right there is, it's about hardening your house and the type of vegetation and things, and that's where these zones, defensible space zones, have originated from.
All right, thanks, Chief. So as you guys can see here in Lahaina, so this house saved, all the other ones weren't. I kind of got the backstory from this house. It's a good visual for everybody to see of home hardening. You can see, I'm pretty sure this is a metal roof. The house was recently remodeled. There was lots of stuff done to it, which is why it was in the condition it's in, and everything else isn't. But also just understand that there are those times where Chief was talking about earlier, where you could do everything possible to give your property the best chance in the world, and Mother Nature is just going to tell us, I don't think so, and do what it's going to do. So, but the Sacramento guys that originally sent some of the stuff out, they grabbed that as just a good visual for you guys to see kind of home hardening stuff. So that's pretty much what I have for Firewise presentation stuff. There's different QR codes up here, so for your phones, so lots of good information, more than the four of us could ever provide to you, and it's constantly changing. And there's a whole team of folks up in Sacramento that do a lot more of this than we do and keep this ready for wildfire updated. And then here's the NFPA information, and then insurance, the state insurance information stuff that they provide for people about homeowners insurance and home hardening and whatnot that they got for wildfires. There's a lot to this. There's lots more questions I know you're gonna have. I'll touch on a couple quick other little things that I deal with, and then there's my information. One of the other things that Chief hit on that was brought up in the beginning was the defensible space program that Riverside City's doing. So like Chief said, we've been doing that here in the county for a long time. It just depends on what area you live in on whether or not we're completing it or not. Right now we're doing them, and we're only required to do them in areas where state responsibility areas are at. You guys are not within those areas. But as we're moving along and as things happen, my partner in the fire marshal's office, Kylie, and her crew, who provide a lot of the other stuff for you guys in the local areas, are starting to do those things, are going to start to do those things. So as that progresses, it's something that will naturally happen and occur. One of the big ones that you guys will run into, depending where you live within here in the community, is a real estate inspection when you go to sell your house. AB 38 is what's called, AB 38 2019, because if you look up the new AB 38, it deals with felons and whatnot right now. So it's 2019 AB 38, and that just requires that if you live within a very high and high fire severity zone, that you have a home inspection completed of the natural hazard disclosure, which is wildfire, and in the SRA. And then my partner Kylie and her crew are handling it in the local areas. So if you don't live within an SRA area, and I'll let her touch on that stuff if she wants to, but it's super simple. It's free from the state. We handle it for right now as far as that goes. And that is just something between you and the seller. And there's nothing, the buyer, I'm sorry, and there's nothing special about that inspection that happens. It's the same inspection we do for our defensible space inspections. Nothing more, nothing less. So, and that's all I have. And I'll turn it over to Kylie for you guys. I'll leave this up for you guys.
So I don't have a presentation. I just wanted to touch on a couple things. My name is Kylie Tilema. I'm the Assistant Fire Marshal for Riverside County Fire. We serve and staff this Fire Marshal office for the city of Beaumont. Some of you might know me. I used to be based out of Beaumont, and now I've moved on to the county level and just oversee. Tying into Firewise Communities and kind of that synergistic effect of being able to do multiple things and create stacked benefits. The Firewise community is a community level benefit, and you will look at your properties and address items on your properties to qualify to be a Firewise community. Home hardening is one of those, and defensible space at the property level. In addition to Firewise communities is wildfire prepared home. And back on the back table, I left a single fire and then a checklist, which is about 7 or 8 pages, that walks you through what wildfire prepared home is. This is something that the individual property owner can do. The one aspect of it I do want to point out is that there is a cost to it. You would apply through IBHS, which is what Chief Lubben showed, that they do the modeling and they do the burns and they identify what those strategic improvements, both to home hardening and to defensible space, that are really impactful to saving the home and making the community wildfire resilient, correct? So these are individual things a property owner can do. There is always also a wildfire prepared home neighborhood standard that I would love to see Four Seasons pursue. But I think we need to start with Firewise community. That would be step one. And then if that's successful, let's look at if at a community level, it would be beneficial. There is guaranteed insurance benefits for becoming a wildfire prepared home designation. There's 2 levels, base and plus. I would say any home within Four Seasons, because of the age built, could qualify for base. Plus is a little more difficult. Newer homes can do it easily because of newer building standards. But the cost to retrofit your home for plus it may not be worth it. But there's several insurers that are working with IBHFs and will guarantee insurance. I don't know what the rate would be, but it would get you off of the Cal Fair plan, which we know is pretty costly. So if the community likes, and Eric can get with me and let me know, I can bring IBHS out to go over this. But it's not something, their website is wonderful. Very similar to the Ready for Wildfire page, walks you through step by step. Vegetation, remove all vegetation within 5 feet to bare mineral soil. The one thing I will say about the wildfire prepared home designation is it is a little over and above the base code. But if you're one of those homeowners that's struggling to get insurance, it is really, really beneficial. We've seen it work throughout the state and then throughout Riverside County so far. Some of the new home builders, KB Homes, Lennar, and Pulte, have committed to the county that they will build to this standard moving forward, because it does guarantee at this time that insurance, and that's through that Safer from Wildfire program through the state. The other thing Chief Lubben mentioned was the AB 38 inspections. Within the local responsibility areas, so within the city of Beaumont and other incorporated cities in the county, those areas not served by the state, that is my team that has that responsibility. So if you sell a home, the seller has to obtain this inspection, and it's based on just simple defensible space. We give you opportunities to fix it, and we'll walk you through what you have to do to get there. And you can still close escrow without it. You have up to a year to obtain that defensible space. In the county, there is a cost to that. It's minimal. It's $170 for us to come out and do that for the initial inspection and re-inspection. So with that, I will turn it back over to Chief Hopkins and Chief Lubben, and we're here to answer any questions.
Okay, so the last thing that before we take questions, we briefly mentioned the FARCL program. I can tell you that we did apply for the city of Beaumont to be a FARCL community. Those were all due by October 1st. Essentially, they got pounded with all the different communities and cities that were applying for this. So we still haven't heard back if they've accepted ours. What I can tell you is that I've heard nothing but good. I know that the city of Corona, city of Marietta, did get approved for their FARCL program. And we spoke with them hand in hand about when we were filling out our applications for the city of Beaumont to get through that program. What they told me was that the Board of Forestry was absolutely amazing to work with, and it wasn't just they sent in their application and it got rejected and they had to start from square one. They said that the Board of Forestry was calling them and walking them through the steps on what needed to be corrected on the application to get the correct information so that they can get into that program. So that has happened. Once we do get approval to be in that program, then I'll make sure that that information gets out to Eric so you all know, so you can pass that on to your insurance company, and I'll make sure that our fire marshal staff, that we get that updated on the city's webpage, that we are part of that program. Because whether you like it or not, as you start to redo your insurance or renew, thank you, I was looking for the word. As you start to renew your insurance, if it hasn't happened to you already, I know a number of residents, when the insurance company, they're wanting you to either, they want to come out and inspect your property now, or they're asking you to do, the one I just saw a couple nights ago was they wanted them to walk through and do a video of their property and then send that into the insurance company. So just know that that's coming and be prepared for it. And that's what we're trying to do, is get you all prepared for when the insurance, you're having to renew your insurance, or so you will not have to get canceled by your insurance because you're part of either the Farkle, the Firewise, or the other programs that Kylie was just mentioning through IBHS. So that's our intent here, is to help you through those steps and guide you. So now, I guess if you have any questions, we're more than willing to take them out. Do you guys need to walk around? You got mics? Okay, so there's mics. And
Am I on this one? I have two that are holdovers from the insurance. I promised them that I would bring them to you.
okay.
So here they are. And I don't know the answers to these.
And I'll answer them the best I can. I don't know everything,
This is
but
an
we'll
interesting
answer
one.
whatever we
This is
can.
an interesting one. The 5-foot zone, does it start at the outside of your building structure or from where the eaves are?
From the wall of your structure.
That's an interesting question.
It's from the wall of your structure out 5 feet, is 0 to 5 feet.
Okay, my other question from the other meeting, my neighbor's tree is within 5 feet of my house. What can I do about that if they refuse to trim it?
So they live in Beaumont, so they can call down to either our fire marshal's office, or they can call code enforcement. And there are already laws that exist that you have to maintain your trees within a certain, 10 feet, I think, from a structure or a property line, I think, is it? Kylie, do you know? Here you go.
So with outside of a fire hazard severity zone, trees have to be maintained 10 feet from the roof of a structure. So if it's within 5 feet of your house, or 10 feet of the house, if it's on your property, you can trim it back. I know nobody wants that cost, but you can legally do that. But I would encourage you to call our office down at the city hall and ask to talk to fire prevention. They'll work with code enforcement to have somebody come out there and notice the property owner. Please understand that is a step-by-step process, right? We can't just go out there and tell them you're going to trim your tree today, right? Give us some time to work through it. Are you talking canopy or the canopy, not the trunk of the tree?
Like property line.
And
Oh, you're talking about for the 10 feet?
yeah,
the
it's
canopy
the
for the
canopy
roof.
of the tree. The trunk of the tree is not really the hazard. I won't go into that as much. Chief can address that.
I'll cover that. So the reason why it's not the trunk of the tree and it's the branches is, I talked a little bit on the last meeting we had about the type of fuels we have. So we classify our fuels into 1 hour, 10 hour, 100 hour, 1,000 hour, 10,000 hour fuels. So your 1 hour fuels are going to be your, from like, not zero, but up to a 1/4 inch in diameter fuels. Those are your most flammable type of fuels. That's what carries fires typically. So as your branch and your leaves are going out, they're getting smaller and smaller, right? So that's going to be more flammable. It actually, if it's kind of weird picturing in your head, but a smaller diameter, a 1 hour fuel has more surface area than say a 10 hour fuel that's, like a small tree trunk or something. So that's why we're looking at the branches. Yes, sir.
Is this on? Okay, it is on. Okay. I understand the reason behind the Firewise community. It will definitely change the look and the feel of Four Seasons, though. My questions are, what is being done to stop the off-road vehicles from racing through the undeveloped land south of Four Seasons? Also, what is being done to stop the shooting in the same area? These are much more of a fire hazard than having shrubbery growing within 5 feet of my home.
So as far as fire department, nothing. That's not our job. That's a law enforcement job. So you'd have to reach out if it's on like an LRA area that's owned by the city land, then that would be a Beaumont PD. If it's going to be in the county area, that would be the county of them having to go out. I can tell you that, like, I know Riverside Sheriff has a program where they go out to ticket illegal off-roading in the areas, but it is hard to catch. I mean, many of the fires that we get out on the south of Highland Springs, you know, it's known as the shooting area, right? And the quarry, and that's where the fires end up starting from people shooting. What I can tell you is that we have a fabulous prevention bureau that goes out and we investigate all these fires, and we have caught numerous people and held them accountable for the fires from shooting. But ATVs, sometimes it's harder to catch, but as far as from the CAL FIRE or Riverside County fire side, we don't typically go out and have any, because we're not peace officers in that way that we can enforce that. That's going to be a law enforcement.
We've called the police several times, and obviously we've called the police several times, weekly, all right, and I'm sure they're busy doing other things, and I get very little, if any, response at all from the police.
So what I would say, if it's for something like that, are you talking about on the back area out here? Yeah, so the city limits go pretty far out that way on the old Lockheed property. What I would do is I would go and visit. Chief Ramos is a great guy down at Beaumont PD. He's our police chief. Make an appointment in there to go and have a sit down with them. Your other avenue would be to address city council on that at one of the meetings and try to get help that way if you feel that your needs aren't being met. But as far as for the fire side, we don't really have any type of enforcement that we can do. What I can tell you, though, that's kind of what our programs are about. So if they did start a fire, that's what we're trying to do here. So if a fire did start, you're going to be protected, even if a fire started out there in that area. So I'm sorry we can't do anything else about it, but that'd be my suggestion. Yes, sir.
Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me? I have a question. So when we moved here, we're in Madera Creek, which is the highest fire zone, right across the street from George. Mm-hmm. And so we had to go to Cal Fire. The first year was $3,100, not for liability, that's through Mercury, and no one would underwrite us. Well, the next year, Cal Fire sent me a letter, and they did what they called a risk model, and they did 2-level. Exposure from 0 to 10, we were a 5. But then the vulnerability scale, which was a level 2, was a 1 out of 10. So that helped a little bit. So it dropped it down to a little over $900 last year. So my question is this: we're working on the Firewise community. Before we all start cutting hedges, I'm not sure how that's going to work with the Architectural Review Committee, where we just start hacking bushes and stuff like that. So we'll have to work with Eric on that. But my question is, this January, I got another letter from CAL FIRE basically talking about hardening, and then all the things that you've talked about as far as discounts. Some of it is going to be a long yard for all of us just because they're track houses. We're all close to each other. So my question is this, and I'll let you go to it, is out of all the questions, basically what you talked about, do I answer some of it knowing that the home is not totally hardened and maybe never will be, and just take a stab at it and send it to DFI and Oracle, my broker, and CAL FIRE, saying, okay, I've done 5 out of these 10. So that's my question. You wait, or do you go ahead and submit it, try to get some discounts?
So is that an actual letter from CAL FIRE? Okay. So thought I've heard of these coming out from the meetings I've been in. I've yet to see one. Perfect. Oh, no, this is from the FAIR Plan. This isn't from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is from the FAIR Plan. This isn't from us, it's CAL FIRE. So the FAIR Plan, yes, they talk about these different things for a discount. I'm on the FAIR Plan. I just got one of those yesterday in my mailbox. So that's why I know exactly what you're talking about. So what you got to understand about the FAIR Plan is the FAIR Plan is not state insurance. Okay, it's California, it says it, right? But it's not state insurance. Every insurance company that wants to be an insurance company in California has to apply and either be listed or non-listed. To be listed, you have to pay money into a fund, almost like for your bank, right? To insure your money to be there. And that's what is providing us as insurance on FAIR Plan. So as you can imagine, that amount is low the more insurance companies are in California. The more that leave, the higher amount the rest have to pay into that to pay for people's insurance, right? So they're trying to find ways to get insurance companies to come back in. I will tell you this. Don't be afraid of being on the FAIR Plan, because what I know of is it's probably better you're on the FAIR Plan than potentially what is coming once an insurance company provides insurance in your zip code again. Could be a whole lot more because they want people back in. They're basically giving them open door to raise the rates as much as they want to get them in the state, get them back into the area to provide insurance. So it's one of those, yes, I would answer the questions, provide what you can. Once the community at large does the FireWise recognition and you guys can get it, then you'll just have to ask Eric, our volunteer, your name's been called a lot, will hopefully give everybody a copy of the recognition, right? And there's a couple more things with that. So whatever map it is that he uses, that he uploads there as well, has to accompany that, and you turn it into the California FAIR Plan, and they're supposed to provide you the discount.
Hi, a lot of homes here in the Four Seasons community are right up against common areas. And when we look at the intermediate as well as the extended zones, how are we going to deal with those issues that we don't have control of?
Yeah, so when it comes to that, the way it works is if it's the HOA's property, well, then they have to maintain and keep that property up to the standard, right? And let's say I go and did a defensible space inspection at your house and you're good, but within your 100 feet, your neighbor's tree is encroaching. When I do the inspection, I have to ding your neighbor on that infraction over there because they're encroaching on your defensible space. So it plays both ways.
Yeah, you mentioned vinyl fencing or vinyl eaves or whatever. So vinyl's highly flammable? Is that what you were saying? Because
Yes.
wood fencing, I would imagine, would be
Yes.
more flammable. But
So part of the Zone Zero stuff they're talking about that it's not out yet, but a lot of the things they're talking about is people that have like vinyl fencing and vinyl rain guards or rain gutters. That stuff is got to go away, right? I understand there's a monetary value to this stuff, which is why I mentioned the Inland Empire Fire Safety Alliance and Fire Safe Councils. So there's grants, there's lots of money, and there is a lot of money coming out to help people with this stuff. We need those agencies that can get the grants for the FireWise communities to then assist with home hardening and different things of that nature.
What kind of fence do you recommend as opposed to, we can call that kind of fence surrounding the house?
So they're talking about like metal fencing. Chief can also attest. Even though wood fencing is flammable, it's still better than vinyl fencing.
It is.
Because of,
The vinyl has a lower ignition temperature than the wood fences, so it melts faster, catches on fire faster. But this is what I don't want you guys to do, is don't jump off the bridge right now. So there's still time in this. There's a lot of things that can happen before they, as Ryan said, the Board of Forestry hasn't enacted and made in that defensible space zone 0. We're told that it's coming, but there's still going to be time. And he's talked about the other programs you can get in. One of the things that I will be talking with Eric about is also you guys possibly becoming a fire safe council here in your community, because it does unlock grants and other things like that, which would benefit the HOA on if there's projects that are around, like, I don't know, do you guys own any of the areas behind the homes, like out in the wildland area? Where does the property line end for the community? Is it in at the fence line, Eric, or is it? No, it extends beyond the fence line. So it extends beyond the fence line, right? Is what I thought.
It does. Yeah,
okay,
it does.
so if you had a fire safe council here, that is something where you guys can get grants, and where like I can bring in our inmate fire crews and we can do work back there for the community, just like we do for cities and things like that. I can't go in and gift state funds to citizens just to do it, but if it's a fire safe council that's a 501c3, we can do projects for them, and then you can get funding by working with the other group, helping you find grants that can pay for us or other type of tree trimmers or other type of people to come in and do work in the community. And it's not that hard to become a fire safe council either. So we're trying to do many different levels here so we can get you all the biggest break on insurance rates. I know that's your number one thing, but also so we can make your community safe fire-wise, because you do have the wildland community that's out behind you.
Thank you.
To piggyback on what Chief said, because I don't want anybody to go out and start pulling out vegetation, pulling out fences, spending money that they don't have, and spending money you don't need to spend. To be a fire-wise community, you don't have to do that. Because those are forward-thinking requirements, and it looks at what you are, where you are today, and how you were permitted when you were built. So don't do that. Some of the other programs will do that, and like Chief said, when Zone 0 does pass, there may be a retroactive. They have said 0 to 3 years, but there's also discussion of 5 years. There's funding mechanisms coming in with it. So I don't worry about that now. We'll cross that bridge if we get there. And I really stress if, because Zone 0, when it first came out, was nothing. It was bare dirt, concrete. And now we're talking about maybe irrigated grass. I would not encourage that, because if you turn off your irrigation, you're going to have a problem, right? But it is very fluid today in this moment, okay? Just a bit of encouragement.
Okay, first of all, thank you for your individual departments and personalities who fight these fires, because the 40 years I've been up in this area, I have been evacuated 3 times, and I moved over here so I wouldn't have to be. So, one of the issues that I run into, and several of you can understand it, all the work I can do to make my house safe from the wildfires gets chewed up by the people who live 50 feet below me with their yards that come up to my yard with the various types of vegetation they have. So my question would be, if you can get an answer, what are the rules for the vegetation of the neighbors? Plus, I moved over here because we have all these magnificent trees and pathways, and they all happen to be the 60 and 70 foot tall fire bombs that can go off. And I know that our group is working on cutting down a lot of those trees. I just happen to have a neighbor or two that have clusters of 70-foot trees so high that they block my view. But that's not the issue. What can be done to keep nesting of trees or clusters of trees limited, shorten the trees? I don't want anybody to have to lose their trees, because I like my trees too, but those are the kinds of issues that some of us in this community live with. The canopy issue, the types of trees that we have, and the clustering and the hillsides. Any comments?
So 2 parts to that, and I know Chief's going to jump in on one part of it. So I'll hit the part that you're talking about with your neighbor's vegetation. So that's like I was talking about earlier, right? So when I go do the defensible space inspection at your house, I'm going to do all the way out to 100 feet. Your neighbors encroach on your 100 feet, they're going to get it on their defensible space inspection, right? Like I said, right now, nobody here is in the SRA area that we're doing the inspections. That's going to fall eventually under Kylie's shop for being the local area, but those inspections, that's what would handle that. As for the other stuff, I know Chief Hopkins has been working on it. I've been part of those conversations, but I'll let him speak to that for those areas.
Yeah, so I've actually been out with Eric and some of the HOA. We brought in members from our Board of Forestry to come in, or our urban foresters. We've walked some of the common areas and they've identified some trees because the HOA's already been looking ahead at the defensible space zones. So we've gone out, we've looked at some of the pine trees and some of those common areas that might have to be removed because they're either too grouped together to make it also so they're more healthy or healthier. So they're healthier trees because they're not competing for water sources, which if you have a healthy tree, then you pretty much have a safe tree, right? It's less chance it's gonna become flammable. And then you do have in your HOA, except for the Conservancy area, you guys have a great program of your tree trimmers already and program that you guys pay into that's maintaining a lot of that. Just because you have trees out there, it's not a reason to be scared that they're gonna be a firebomb or anything like that. If it's a healthy tree and it's getting watered and it's not a dead tree, live trees are good to have. One of the things that the trees do down like in the Conservancy area is they help block the wind from getting down into that ravine that can then help spread fire faster. They also create shade so it stays more moist. It's the cold medicine, all right? So it stays more moist down in there so we don't have as much evaporation coming out. You have greener plants down there. So if you have green plants and you have water down the areas, that slows your fire spread. So don't think as trees are bad, but if you do have that neighbor that has a cluster of trees, that's where, like Ryan said, that wherever Kylie went, there she is, her staff or code enforcement, we let them know, they go out, we do inspections, and then we can ask them to trim back their trees and take care of maintain their properties. Always my suggestion is you talk to your neighbors first and try to work it out amongst each other. I know that it always doesn't work, but did that kind of answer your question, sir? Okay, and I don't know if Eric wanted to elaborate any more on the trees, things that we were doing that day. Did you want to elaborate any more on that? Did you want to elaborate any more on us walking out and identifying some of the trees and stuff, or?
Yeah, so we've been out with multiple vendors that we had. We walked with CAL FIRE, not only Chief Hopkins, but also the urban forestry people, and looked at trees, and they were pointing out trees that we thought we'd have to take out, that they said, no, that tree can stay, you just have to really trim it. If you don't trim it, then yeah, that would have to go. So that's why you see trees up in the Veterans Park area that have either a pink ribbon or a green ribbon or a pink and green ribbon, and those all mean different things to us based on the meetings that we had with them. And then we're getting bids from our vendors so that we put in a budget for this year for some of the mitigation areas, things that we'll have to do. So we do have a budget for that. And then we're getting the bids from the vendors based on those walks that we've had. Again, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. We're trying to make sure that we're doing things correctly and not losing the beauty that we have here and just going through and just flush cutting every tree that we have. That's not what the board wants to do. I don't think that's what CAL FIRE will want to do. So we are trying to take a methodical approach and do things correctly with that. And I think we have.
Because no one here wants to live in a concrete jungle, right? So you have a beautiful community here. The other thing I would say is you guys, okay, I'm gonna check my mind again. 2005 it was built, 2006? 2005. The community was built. How many wildfires have you had run through here since 2005? You have a safe community in here. Now, yes, you have an area just behind you to the south of you that gets fires all the time, right? But because of the way our winds are predominantly are here, the wind pattern doesn't really blow the fire this way real hard. You're getting more of either a backing or a flanking fire that's coming through here, which is much more manageable than having what we call a head fire, which is the largest flame lengths, the highest amount of heat being thrown out, the farthest ember cast being thrown out. So that's part of the thing when we were talking about the Conservancy is we ran fires all through here to see what the fire spread would be in here, and it wasn't a lot at all. It was like in some areas 100 feet per hour, up to with a 60-mile-an-hour wind, it was like 300 feet in an hour. The other thing is when I look at the landscape out in the back, if we were to have, predominantly our wind-driven fires are usually our east winds, right? When we have the Santa Ana winds, well, that's blowing it away from the community. Our normal diurnal wind that we have is usually in the afternoon. We get that southwest flow coming up through Lambs Canyon and stuff. Well, the closest spots where I can see where spot fires will really start coming into the community, it was like 3/4 to a mile away is where you'd be picking up some of these maybe ember casts coming into the community. Well, where it's landing in the community, it's landing right on, maybe where houses are, but you're all tile roofs. There's not a lot of vegetation around remember that ember has to get into a receptive fuel bed, what we call it, and then it has to run and it has to have other fuels in order to become this really big fire. When you look at things and you go, well, what about the Palisades? Those houses were burning right on the beach, right? You had hillside, concrete or asphalt, ocean, and a house in sand or rock, right? Well, I was there, I was watching it. So as the embers are coming off the hillside, they're hitting that nice cool ocean that's out there, and it would kind of stop and the embers were kind of curling back underneath the houses. So they were getting trapped up underneath all those patio covers. Well, that's where everybody sticks all their furniture and stuff, right? So you start to get things like your lawn furniture and everything. That's your fuel, that's your receptive fuel bed, that cloth material. They would start getting burning, and then once it got an established fire that was like protected under there, now it starts burning the deck against to the house, and then their houses are so close together that once one house went up, the radiant heat would catch the next house on fire and then catch the next house on fire. That's how they were burning along the PCH. Up on the Palisades, well, this is the one thing I would tell you. If you are truly worried about your house catching on fire because you live around that hilly area out in the back or you're in the red zone, if you have any type of cypress tree, Italian cypress, any of those type of trees, that's what I would get rid of, because those things have so much dead and dying material inside of them. And when you stick your hands in, you can pull all that material out, not to mention you get rats and possums and everything else in there. But those trees, even though they look like they're dense and everything, the embers get inside there and then start burning in that material, and the wind actually pushes through there and it holds the heat in there. So those trees, I hate those trees. So if that's something that you really wanted to look at your house, if you have those, I would put a different type of tree in there. And then palm trees, hate palm trees. Because palm trees, again, right? But the thing about your community, if you have palm trees in here, you have tree services that are usually maintaining stuff around. If you don't maintain your palm trees, that's where they become a problem, because again, you get that like rat nest growing up in top of the palm fronds. The embers catch inside there where the wind's blowing, and then it shoots out hundreds of embers out of those palm trees, like the queen palms and king palms and stuff. It's just a mess. So those would be the two type of things I would say if you're really worried about your house, ditch those type of plants right now. So we'll come back to you, sir.
I also wanted to say thank you for your service. We have an excellent board here, and Eric is excellent. And part of what we have here is the Conservancy, and it's divided between what we are allowed to touch and handle and what KHOV is supposed to touch and handle. And I believe KHOV has failed miserably. What is the recourse against a builder that's not meeting their obligations, especially in situations like this, taking care of their part of it?
So we're working on that. We've been working for months now with Eric and the HOA, and IRCD and KHOV on coming up with a plan. They seem to have a good plan. They're trying to hold KHOV to fix the things that need to be fixed before it gets turned over, because I'm sure you don't want something turned over to IRCD and to your HOA taking control of it with all this stuff that's gonna have to be paid by the HOA, which means your rates could go up, right, Eric? Am I wrong? So they're dealing with some stuff with that. As the fire chief, if I thought it was a fire hazard, I can go in there, even though there's special critters in there and things. I could go in there and say, nope, we're gonna go in and clear it out. And it's on my radar. If I ever think that, hey, something needs to be done, I will talk with Eric, I will talk with IRCD. But what we're gonna do is, I'm not gonna bring in crews and just go blowing that. It's never gonna look like a park through there, okay? It's a habitat, it's there for a reason, but we're gonna make sure that it's safe for the homes to be around. So we would try to work in conjunction with IRCD and with the HOA and just say, hey, we think that this is a fire hazard and this needs to be removed. And there might be some negotiation in there. If they can do other things to mitigate that problem that we see, then I'm all for it. But I wanna keep your nice walking area that you have. That area is there for a reason. They do that all throughout the state for a reason. So we wanna keep that. The other thing, we're working on some other things like the sprinkler system and stuff in there that I talked with Eric. I mean, you already have a suppression system in there. There's a fire in there, turn on sprinklers. That changes the humidity, it raises the humidity. Fires, again, aren't gonna be able to move when the humidity's higher usually. So we're coming up with different plans, and it's on our radar, and it's a constant working with Eric and the HOA and with IRCD. We're all good partners, and we all want to make sure that everybody's safe in there, but we also want to make sure that the little critters in that area is also safe. But we will look at human life over the critter life if it comes down to that. Yeah, that's not from us, but trust me, Eric and the HOA, and they are on them right now, and it seems like KHOV is willing to participate, and hopefully we keep going down that road, and doesn't have to get into litigation, but that's kind of between the HOA and KHOV. So, yep. Who else?
Hi. Me and my husband moved here about 1.5 years ago, and I want to do some landscaping. That's what I want in my yard. And most of our yard is concrete around our house, but the front yard has bushes, and we're probably going to have to pull some of those out. I want to, before I do this landscaping, which costs a lot of money, I want to do what can be there for a while or whatever. But there's rock, and then there's bushes that are about 2 feet away from the house. So we're obviously probably going to have to pull some of those out. But is rock good around your house, like river rock or whatever?
Hardscape is good. So what I want to tell you guys is there's a lot of worry about changing your guys's hardening your house and changing your landscape. Do not do any of that right now. None of it. I can guarantee you almost all of your homes will qualify for Firewise Community as is. Don't.
I just want to do it.
If you want to do it.
Well, yeah. If you want to do it for that reason, then do it. But if
all right.
there's people worried about changing up their homes, right? Don't do it until the Board of Forestry comes out with the Zone 0. We know for sure what it is they're asking for, what's required, and then we'll go from there.
And then we have a hill in our backyard that's pretty steep with chipped up tire, I guess, for the ground cover. I'm sure tire's not good.
Tire's not good.
So I don't know. I guess just these landscapers hopefully will know.
Yes, there are landscapers that are coming out that are there's a landscaper certification.
I don't know what it's called, but there's a landscaper certification, and it's through the state. So they'll know what is required and what's not required, what is allowed.
Right.
The other thing I want to ask is, what part of the community are you in? Are you in one of the fire?
We're next to George.
Okay. I want to point that out because some of you aren't and much of the community isn't. So just be cognizant of that too, because the requirements in different zones are different. But you can also call you can call our office and we can have somebody come out and take a look and just give you some guidance. We're happy to do that.
A lot of that information, I don't like pointing it to
Right
stuff,
there,
but that Ready for Wildfire, like I said, there is so much information on there for you guys.
Okay.
It is
All right.
Type of plants that you can plant
unimaginable.
that are
The other thing I was concerned about is how are we going to get out of these communities when there is a big fire and we're all evacuating? It's like we only have like a couple roads.
Yeah. So
to get out of here.
So, and we're actually, we work with Beaumont PD because can be a cluster, right? Highland Springs is already tight, right? It's getting in and out. There are plans in place, and we work with Beaumont PD, we work with the sheriffs, we work with Manning PD. It's going to be a collection of all those entities plus fire. What I want you to understand is during evacuations, all fire does is make a recommendation that, hey, we think that we should evacuate these communities because we think the fire is going to be encroaching on these areas and we should get the people out. We don't have the authority to make you evacuate. That is a law enforcement function. However, we do work with our law enforcement partners. One of the things you can do is go on to Riverside County EMD, Emergency Management Department site. I believe it's
rivcoready.org.
And I would sign up on there. There's a quick thing you can sign up for. It's called Genesis Alert. And Genesis is the evacuation program that we use for Riverside County. That will, if you type in your address, and the nice thing about it is, let's say you had kids or a mother or father or something that lived like in certain areas or your friends, you can add their addresses to that also. So anytime that there was going to be any type of evacuation, a shelter in place, an evacuation warning, which an evacuation warning means, hey, that's where we want you to have all your stuff ready, packed in your car, ready to go. We prefer that you leave then, but you don't have to. You can still go in and out of the community, but that's kind of our ready set. And then the evacuation order means that if you leave, we're not letting you back in. That area is getting closed down. But not even a law enforcement officer can force you to leave your house. If you want to stay, then you can stay. We don't advise it during evacuation order, but those are the three things. But that will alert on your phone depending on what zone that we are. All the county is broken into different zones. And if we say, I don't know if this is Beaumont 43 zone, needs to be evacuated into an order, and you're signed up and your house is in that zone, you'll get an alert on your phone and it will tell you that there's an evacuation going on and you should get out. As far as the routes, that's something that we're going to be working on with PD, both Banning and Beaumont, on evacuations routes, and we'll probably have to get the community involved. It could become that they end up making, say, Potrero right outside. That could become possibly a one-way street, depending on what PD wants to do, just to get people out so that we can get resources in on the other side. One of the other things that's going to happen, hopefully within the next 18 months to 2 years, is hopefully the Sun Lakes gets punched through the sunset. So that would be additional relief of getting community out. But yeah, you kind of are in that kind of catcher's mitt of Beaumont, right? In the heel of it. So it's going to be a lot of PD directing you on what way to go. But we are trying to work out this way. Well, there's Pennsylvania, or you just you go down First Street all the way to 79. So, I mean, and we've done it before, but that's something that it's hard to coordinate that. And police change, different fire personnel changes over the years. So we just have to keep having those meetings. We actually do usually a really good job of getting people out. But what we have more of a problem is that people want to wait too late of leaving when we're telling you to leave and we're giving those warnings. That's the best time to leave, when it's an order. Now you got everybody that's trying to get out at one time, and that really clogs stuff up, especially if we're trying to bring equipment in. So.
Real quick, the lady over here was up next.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you have different types of vegetation and stuff, there's certain vegetation that burns and doesn't. That's, if you look on that, whatever that, that QR code was, what was it, Ready for Wildfire? It has stuff on there like what type of plants they recommend on planting that are better fire resilient. So like on your hillside, you know, stuff like ground cover, right? Because things like ground cover holds so much water and moisture in it all the time, like red apple. I mean, you get bees, so don't be allergic to bees because then you're gonna have a different problem. But you plant certain different kind of ground cover, a fire comes running through there, and a lot of times it will stop that fire spread right there. Or if the embers are getting thrown in, it lands in there, nothing happens because there's so much moisture inside of that plant. But the other thing about the retardant, yeah, there is. I don't know where you buy it. You know, you probably get it on Amazon or something. But there is stuff that you can spray. There's gels and stuff. There's also other things. If some of your insurance companies might offer up to you, they contract with private fire companies, like Wildfire Defense Systems. These are private fire companies that work specifically for insurance companies, and they go out and they do home hardening during fires. And it's the insurance companies sometimes hire them, and then you have to pay for it, but they go out and they'll gel your house or they'll gel your fence or and spray this material on it. I know there's a cost associated with it, but that's something that you can look into with your. Yeah, and it might keep your insurance down. I don't know if it'd be a wash on how much it would cost to have that on your plan, or they might just stick it on your plan and say that. But we deal with those, and the laws have changed over the years. We work along with the side of them, and they have specific rules that they have to do before they can come in the communities. Like they're not supposed to be in evacuation order areas driving around. They don't have lights and sirens and things like that because they're private citizens that are working for an insurance company. But we want them to be able to protect their asset. It helps us if they can gel a house or something like that. So we work pretty well with them. Yep. Yes, sir.
So just quick.
I'm sorry, Kylie?
Pre-treatment for vinyl fences. So most of those products you can buy. But the problem with them, it's exposed to the elements. And so it evaporates, it wears off, and they're very costly, right? The other one I get asked a lot, especially new home builders, because the vinyl fence looks nice. They want to paint it with intumescent paint. Intumescent paint is a paint that you can put on any surface, and it is fire resistant. It's very, very expensive, and it's not proven to withstand the elements for long, long periods of time. So I don't know how many times you're gonna have to reapply. It also has to be a certain thickness. There are things you can do. I think what Chief was talking about is things you can do just ahead of the wildfire, the gel and things like that. We're hiring those companies. Yeah. But yeah, if I thought that was a good idea, I would totally encourage it. And I'd tell you products. I don't know of any.
We all have $500,000 houses. What's $5,000 to save? I mean, our insurance is going up that much anyhow, so.
Way more than $5,000. I will yeah, we just did a couple homes in the wine country area.
And I have a huge lot, 14,000.
All right, yes, sir. Let's go with your question.
Okay, so are the vinyl windows an issue?
Not as necessarily because they're the dual pane, so they seem to hold up pretty okay. Yeah. Who has the mic? Yes, ma'am.
All right, here's my question. Last year or 2 years ago when we bought our home, we were not in the high-risk area. Now we're in the high-risk area. And you're telling us not to get panicky and start making changes and stuff, but what happens next year? Are there going to be new parameters added to those maps that are not going to put us into like not high risk, but ultra high risk where we lose our insurance? So who makes up those parameters? And like, how often do they change?
Yeah, so when they do the fire zone severity maps, it's evaluated on a number of points and reasons to create these maps. And one of the talks that is coming is now adding the moderate zone into the very high and high fire severity zone as far as doing these retrofits, the defensible space inspections, the AB 38, the real estate inspection. So it's going to be forever changing because the research changes as we start to have these fires. And like I said, we started this program, CAL FIRE started this program 60 years ago, and we're over 60 years ago. And what was known then was we were just worried about 33 to 100 feet minimal grass and nothing. It wasn't anything about trees or any of that stuff over your house. So as things progress, the research comes in, we understand how to protect your homes, we understand things change. So yes, unfortunately some things are going to change, but the good thing is a lot of the stuff that's being asked of and being taken care of now is a lot of good stuff that probably won't necessarily change too much in the future by any means. With this monetary cost that is recognized by the legislator, by the Board of Forestry, and everybody that they do this, hence why there's all this grant money for coming out. Like one of the other ones I said where there's lots of money, Prop 4 that just came out, there is a lot of money coming from Prop 4 to these 503c organizations to assist with home hardening, with vegetation management stuff, to make sure people's communities are safe and make sure your homes are safe. They're going as far as they've done select areas currently right now. The closest one to us is Potrero down in San Diego area, where they were selected for home hardening stuff. So there are specific grants in these selected areas throughout the state that they're trying a lot of these home hardening things for. So people applied for them and they're actually getting home hardening. So the stuff it's ever evolving and things are changing. I understand your concern, but like I said, with what a lot of your guys' stuff was built to just before 2007 and 2010 is all good stuff anyways. So there's very minimal changes with stuff that you would have to do. Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I actually have a few questions, which I came with as well as one. You mentioned grants. Could those potentially cover our private fences, the fences between our yards?
So the grant, like I was saying, the home hardening stuff, it's all dependent on the grants and the way the grants are written and what they're to be used for, right?
Okay.
So there's some grants are very loose, some are very restrictive with what they want, right? But there are grants out there to help retrofit people's properties.
Okay, so it's possible. Okay.
But understand, if you're going to get those grants, that's where I was talking about, you might have to become like a fire safe council or something and become a 501c3 organization, which is a volunteer organization, right? That can.
We're working on, right?
Right.
Okay, see?
Okay.
Okay, it was mentioned at the conservation land meeting that an analysis had been done to determine how quickly a fire would spread in the conservation land, which wasn't going to be a problem. Has an analysis been done to determine the same information for the Four Seasons HOA areas based on the same?
So I haven't done one for like the whole entire community, but your conservancy is what the talk was, and that's where kind of the most open land. Right. Typically, we're not going to do that because usually if you walked out right now and tried to start a fire in your grass, it's green, it's probably not going to spread, right? So what I did do is I looked at some of the areas, the outlying areas behind, and I didn't really get any significant spread because the spot fires weren't getting into really any of those areas. But could a spot fire maybe get into Veterans Park and burn some of that? Yeah, and anything's possible. I'm not going to say that, but overall, look at the track record of your community. It's been almost 25 years or 20 years, and you haven't had any wildfires running through here.
Yeah, you can say that about some of the communities that just burned down too. But
that's what I'm saying. But it's a different type of communities, right? Well, we have high winds too, but it's the way the winds blow through the areas, this type of vegetation you have. And that's what we're saying. There's things that you can do to improve some of that type of stuff with your houses. That's what I was telling you. If you got cypress trees, I get rid of cypress trees. Those things, they're a mess to begin with, and they catch fire embers in them. So
looking at the CAL FIRE map, which I got at one of the previous meetings, it appears that the high and very high fire risk is due more to the home's distance from the perimeter of the Four Seasons rather than the topography. At least that's what it looks like to me. If that is correct, what would need to be done in addition to the existing? We already have a clearance. We already have sprinklers. In other words, in order to lower the threat, which would also improve the hopefully the high risk and very high risk that we have currently for the homes that are anywhere near that area.
Okay, so the new maps looked at terrain, topography, climate, weather, all of that, right?
Okay.
But it does not take into account your fuel modification. They don't look at that because it is modeling the potential hazard, not the actual risk.
Right.
It doesn't look at that, and that's why the actual hazard is coming from the wildland, as Chief mentioned, and where the historical fire starts to occur.
Right.
And the trend of where those embers would cast to into the community. That's why it's higher near the terrain and less going in. Changing that is that if we did a bunch of fuel mod, say we did miles of fuel mod, it doesn't look at that because the potential is there for that to be overgrown and things like that.
Okay, so basically you're saying that there's nothing that the association can do to make a change in the outer area to lower our very high risk.
It'll reduce the risk. It will not change the map.
There's one thing you can do,
Okay.
and that's get a builder to build behind you.
And that's what I was saying. If you turned that into concrete tilt-ups and it was all concrete, and now you don't have that vegetation there anymore
Okay.
to where the embers can cast out, then that can change the fuel modification.
A golf course is another one, right? Those are things that is being looked at in the grand scheme of things to build in these engineered ways to reduce risk to the structure.
Okay, so that's the only thing that can save those of us who are in the bad areas.
Yeah, and we don't have control of those
I know.
maps. So that's all done up out of Sacramento.
Okay. And when selling a house, does CAL FIRE defensible space inspection form require, I think you require gutter covers? Because I read that on the California Realtors Association sign, and you said it was negotiable?
So what she's talking about is the natural hazard disclosure that has to be done on all homes when you sell within California, and wildfire is considered part of a natural hazard disclosure. So if you fall within the very high fire severity zones and potentially the medium, they're talking about moderate, they're talking about bringing moderate into this.
We're good.
You fall into at least to the 2 zones already, you have to have an inspection completed.
I think he's in the back.
As the seller. So the seller or the real estate agent of the seller can request it. The buyer cannot request these inspections. The inspection, if you fail it or pass it, either way, it does not preclude you or stop you from selling your house. It's just simply there to let the buyer know what the natural hazard is and what some of the problems are, right? And then at that point, everything is negotiable between the seller and the buyer as far as things that need to be done. Our defensible space inspections you can look them up online and see exactly what we ask for and what we look for, right? Anything above that is stuff that real estate escrow agencies and whatnot are asking for. And that's something you discuss with them and has nothing to do with us.
It is no different than discussing or disclosing that you're in a flood zone or you're in an earthquake zone or anything. They added fire now. That's all they did.
Then we had this gentleman over here had a question.
We're going to take one more small question. Just a question, please.
I think there's a couple.
Yeah.
We're okay. If you guys got questions, we'll answer.
When they build this facility, when it's all under the code, and how often will the code change? And whether it's working with the insurance company, when you don't jack our prices up.
Kylie?
Okay, so when the community was entitled, when planning approved it, it was entitled to the current code at the time, and it was built to code. Every home in here, every structure in here went through plan check. You have the fuel mod zone, which does get inspected. The code changed, but the individual structures are not required to comply. Outside of that, we can't impact insurance. And insurance is saying, hey, there's a risk here, and because of losses over time, they're not willing to take that risk. They're asking you, in order to continue to assure you to upgrade, to make the home more resilient and safer and ensure their, or reduce their risk, correct? But the codes change every 3 years. And we, as an AHJ, don't have the ability to come through and say, change your house because the code changed, nor would we. That's not the right thing to do for a homeowner or any community.
So it's no different, sir, if you think about it. Think back in the 70s when they're building houses, shake roofs, right? Wood shake roofs, and now today, wood shake roofs are unheard of. It's all tile, concrete roofs, or some type of thing. That's changed over time, and now insurance companies, if you have a wood shake roof, they will not touch your house, they will not insure your house. And that's basically what's happened is the codes were up to the date. We don't have any control of what the insurance companies do. Just like even if we got rid of the map that's back there, doesn't mean the insurance company doesn't have their own maps and is gonna say, hey, we're not gonna insure you. You're welcome, sir.
Now, I think we're about to wrap up, but I did want to touch on two things. One was a question or kind of a comment that they wanted to take out plants. Please, before you do any kind of modification to the outside of your home, go through ARC. They're more than happy to work with you. There's no fees. It's just a form and a picture. It's super simple. It's very easy. And then also, as far as evacuations, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to people and they always come in and out the same way. Every day, all the time. Drive your community. Know how to get out a different way. Go a back way. Know how, that road might be closed. If you only go one way and you don't know how to go out any other way, you're going to need to know how to go out another way. So take a few minutes. Most people are retired. Take a leisurely drive and turn off the GPS and find a different way to come in and to leave the community.
Real quick, so what I can say to tag onto this for Firewise for you guys to really understand, it's great that there's an HOA here. We really encourage the HOAs. You as the community members for the HOA, I understand there's the ARC that oversees your landscaping and all that stuff and what you guys could do. The HOAs are understanding that things need to change. So you need to engage with the HOAs to get the HOAs to change what it is that your landscape looks like so everybody can come into compliance with the stuff, which is what needs to be done. But like I said, right now, I can guarantee if I was to walk out and walk your neighborhood, you guys would I guarantee probably everybody would qualify as it is right now for a Firewise community with stuff, minus a couple of things. Like I said, it's check boxes on the form of overall community in the house stuff. The individual stuff that Kylie was talking about with things, now that sort of thing's different, and that's where things will require, modifications, home hardening and whatnot. And then if and when the Zone 0 comes out, depending on what that is, and then how those regulations get pushed out and enforced, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think there's going to be any Zone 0 police. Okay. So the enforcement is going to come from insurance companies asking for proof is my guess, knowing what I know and in the meetings that I'm in. So that's where the modification stuff comes from. And then, like I was saying, there is lots of help out there for homeowners, for retrofits, for funds for that stuff. It's all getting in contact with the Firewise councils. Like I said, the Inland Empire Fire Safe Alliance is a really good one. They've been around for over 20 years in San Bernardino, doing lots of communities there. They're trying to work their way here in to help the residents here in Riverside County. Lots of good stuff from them that they've learned through all the fires that you guys have seen up there on the mountain front country, in the mountaintop and in San Bernardino. So there's lots of good information out for you, more than the three of us can provide, the four of us actually, and no, because it's so much. So,
and then just one other thing, as far as ARC, if you have a letter from your insurance company that says you have to do something, even if it's quote unquote against the HOA rules, ARC will grant the variance and the board would as well. So if you have a letter from your insurance company that says you have to do something, bring it to ARC, bring it to the board, and they will work with you.
I can't thank you all enough. There's one more thing. One more thing from Todd.
So you're asking what are they doing about 4th of July fireworks? So we have a zero tolerance on that, but it's gone to law enforcement, and law enforcement, they've increased the fines. It's actually a felony now for using a lot of fireworks. So that's without expanding too deep in that. But before you all leave, what I want to do is make sure that you understand what you're supposed to do next. So just a quick recap. So Ryan is going to work with Eric And you want to explain what do these citizens have to do, these residents have to do right now?
You guys have to do nothing. Nothing. Right? Other than what you're doing now, which is your yard work or paying your landscaper to do your yard work, or start to do 1 hour at least of yard work a year. That's it. That's all you got to do. Eric's got to do the hard part of walking around with the application and kind of making note of the percentage of homes for the different areas and marking it. And he's got to come up with the 3-year plan, the map, and that stuff.
So
Looks like a really smart guy. I think
do they
he got
need
it.
to send anything to Eric saying that they want to be part of Firewise?
You guys will not have to send anything to him. From my understanding, it wants to be the whole community. So the only thing I'm going to work with him doing is splitting the community. So some of you might be in whatever zone he wants to call what, or however he wants to call it, because we don't really want to go over 1,500 for one particular area. So it's better just to split it into 2 and then go from there. And then everybody's going to be part of it and be issued the discount, I guess, if you get it. Please reach out and let us know if you do, because I'm really curious myself.
Okay. One of the nice things is that individual is just right here in Riverside County, right down the road from us. So we have a very good relationship and can kind of try to push it faster.
Yeah. It's not super quick, but it's not super